Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 105 of the Falcoholic Live. I am, of course, your host, Kevin Knight, and I will be joined at some point by Eric Robinson. I know he was having some difficulties getting home from work this evening, so he'll join us as soon as he's available, and we'll kick things off there, but I didn't want to keep you fine people waiting in the chat. I know, Solera has stopped his Halo playing. Other folks have stopped their Doom Eternal playing. So I can't get in the way of that. That's quite a trade-off you've given there to stop your video game time to watch the show. So I appreciate that. So early on here, I know some people have been asking questions and stuff like that. I'll definitely answer any questions you guys want. Give Eric just a few more minutes to get home, and then we'll just jump into it if he's still running a little bit late. It's no big deal one way or the other. So yeah, I know someone had talked about the Saints and the cut of Larry Warford, and obviously I think that's a little bit of a risky decision to do that, because Warford was by pretty much all measures a top 10 guard in the NFL last year, and one of the stalwarts on that offensive line, Andrus Peat, who they just gave giant extension to, was not a stalwart on the offensive line. He was one of PFF's worst graded guards actually last year, and he did deal with his share of injuries and things like that, but I just don't see any scenario where I'd rather have Andrus Peat than Larry Warford. I mean, Warford's only like 29. It's not like he's old or anything like that. I mean, Peat is young, but Cesar Ruiz is their first round pick, a guy that I liked a lot. He was my number one center, number one guard prospect too, but this is not a Quentin Nelson level prospect. I mean, Cesar Ruiz is very good. I think he certainly has the potential to be a very good guard in the NFL, but if he's not a top 10 guard this year as a rookie, then you're getting a downgrade there. The upside is the Saints are probably saving like $5 or so million with this cut of Warford, because you also have to take into account that Ruiz is costing to something. I forget how much he's costing based on where he was drafted in the first round, but Ruiz isn't like free, so they're making a lateral move there. They do save $7 million technically with Warford's cut, but they still have to pay Ruiz his money. So it's interesting. I don't. If it was me, I wouldn't do it. Personally, I would have kept Warford, but we've been scarred by having basically very lackluster guard play, at least at one spot, for the past several years. So, I mean, I can't think of any scenario where I'd let a very good guard like Warford out the door. I know some fans have been kind of asking if Warford is a fit for the Falcons, and I guess my thoughts are that Warford, he's a great pass protector and a great power run guard, but he's not very athletic. That's always been his weakness. He's not going to be able to pull and get out on stuff and do those types of things in the zone rushing scheme that the Falcons like to run out there. So, I mean, could he play in Atlanta and be an upgrade over like James Carpenter and Jamon Brown? Yes, absolutely. But he doesn't really fit their athletic thresholds like to a T. But I mean, if it was me, I'd just say, that's fine. Like if we had money to burn, I'd be like, yeah, go get Larry Warford. But I just don't think that's going to be a priority, particularly with the amount of money that they already have tied up in that position. We're talking about two giant not giant, but starting caliber contracts for Brown and Carpenter that are both bad, obviously. So that sucks. But tying up any more money in guard, I think, is something they're probably not willing to do for various reasons. I'd much rather them spend that money on like an edge defender. I think we're all holding out hope for Everson Griffin. We've got 2 weeks. If Griffin makes it 2-3 more weeks without getting signed, then the chances of that happening get a lot better. But he has to make it until June, because the Falcons can't sign him until then. So that's an important thing to keep in mind here. Hold on. Tyler Raines. Thoughts on the Rams uniforms? Oh man, I don't like them. And that's weird because wait, what's up, Evan? Oh wait, I can't hear you. Talk again. Now I think I can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Sorry, me and DW were doing my staff spotlight thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Those are a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I'm excited to listen to yours too. That plug our other podcast here. DW's doing some series on each of our riders. You guys
Getting
probably
to know us all.
Yeah. So those are a lot of fun. We get to know each other a little bit better. I was
Eric was the most recent one.
Yeah, yeah.
So after you listen to this show, go listen to that so you can get to know him more.
Yeah, yeah. Especially since he's late tonight, so you can go in there and make fun of him for that too. But yeah, I was just about to start dishing on the Rams uniforms, but as our resident uniform expert, I was going to get your take. I was going to get your take on the Rams uniforms first. So go ahead on that one.
I mean, I know they're getting backlash, and they probably deserve it. It's one of those things where, like, if that had been, if it was an expansion team and you were like, this is their design, I don't hate it. Mm-hmm. The problem is they had great uniforms, I thought, before, or at least a template to be like, okay, this is what we need to do. If they want to add a little, twist to it, that's fine. But like the Kurt Warner uniforms would have been fine. The blue and yellow, how they used them as like a throwback. But obviously, because of the one helmet rule, they had like the darker blue from the gold helmets. But all they had to do was lighten the helmet color, use the blue and yellow. It's weird. I don't know. I don't get the bone. It's called bone. The color that's like a gray. It's kind of beigey. It's weird looking to me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. I think the numbers kind of look like soccer numbers, actually.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's certainly different.
Like the patch on the white one killed it. Like I don't know what is going on with that.
I don't like it.
It looks totally out
like
of place.
An advertisement.
Yeah,
like the NBA has their ads on the jersey now. That's what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, it's a weird look there. I don't really like the two-tone white that they tried to get going there. Like,
yeah,
to me, like,
and I like the solid horns. I don't like the like broken up thing.
Yeah, it's just I think people wanted them, like Rams fans in particular, really wanted them to go old school with it. Like I know Falcons fans,
so they did the opposite.
Yeah, and then they did the exact opposite. Yeah, and like with the Falcons, they were like kind of talking it up like it was going to be a modern look. So I think it wasn't entirely shocking that it was a little bit more aggressively styled. But even then, like it's not as aggressive as the Rams changed. Like there's gradients on every jersey. There's like multiple colors of white. There's like the numbers are gradient on some. They got like gradient stripes on the side. They've got like that neon yellow color. I mean, it's just it's a little exciting. It's not really my thing, and I like modern uniforms, and I'm not a fan of those.
Well, my perfect example is what the Chargers did, to where their new uniforms are basically a modern touch on old school style, where they're not doing anything crazy. They basically got rid of the darker blue, which I believe is going to be on like an alternate though, which is tasteful. It looks great. But they have like the light blue, yellow. They focused on it. They didn't add a bunch of like nonsense to it. I love the Chargers look. I don't know. I thought they nailed it out of the park.
Yeah, no, I really like the Chargers, and that's what was, the Rams like now had to compete with the Chargers in the same city. And like if I was living in LA, I know it'd be an easy decision what uniform I would buy. I mean, the Chargers the Chargers have always had nice uniforms, but yeah, those powder blue, like the new Charger powder blue ones, those ones kill it.
And I think they have they're doing the old school thing with the number on the helmet, right?
I can't remember if that was the Chargers or if that was somebody else, but it might be the Chargers. I think it was some team that was doing it.
I think it is the Chargers. I'm not sure if it's for all of the helmets, like if it's a a mandatory thing, or if it's a like an alternate thing. But I don't know. I thought the Chargers nailed it out of the park. I think the Rams completely took a step backwards for absolutely no reason. And as you mentioned, the fans, because I'm a uniform junkie, unfortunately, like during these times, I'm like looking at every uniform leak or rumor or whatever. And the big thing with the Rams was they said they had a video literally about how they listened to their fans, and they wanted to do like an old school, the fans wanted more old school, as you mentioned, and stuff like that. And it's like, this is what you came up with.
This is not that at all.
Like, I think you listened to the fans and then you said, oh, Nike, what do you guys have up your sleeve? Like, because that's what they've been doing with a lot of the other teams.
Yeah,
they did it with the Bucks and Browns years ago, and now look at them. They're back to old stuff.
Oh, yeah. I think this is going to be a Bucks situation where the Rams are going to keep these for like 2 years and then change them again.
I don't see how they don't.
Yeah, so that, I mean, it just seems like teams really overthink these uniforms, and it's a shame because, I mean, the Rams really didn't need to change much. But they were like, no, let's go. Let's make, like, so it's pretty weak. I'm not a fan of them. You're not either. And I mean, I know there's some Rams fans.
The good thing is we don't have to buy them.
No, we don't have to buy them. Yeah. No, I'd much rather buy the Falcons jerseys, which I don't.
And I was hard on the Falcons uniforms when they first came out, just because I am more of a traditionalist when it comes to the uniforms. I like the simplicity. I do like when teams like the Chargers or like the Bills did in recent years do like an old school look, but with like a little, more modern look. Obviously, you can't go completely old school like the Packers or Cowboys. But like I like the little, let's go back to old, but keep a little new stuff. The Falcons, it's like by the day they're growing on me. I don't think I'll ever be a big fan of the chrome face mask. I wish it was like solid black. I think it just takes away from too much. Like it distracts.
It is an attention grabber. Yeah. So I'm kind of with you there. I guess I need to see how it looks on the field and see how
definitely. I mean, and if they win, it's going to make it look better.
They'll be the best jerseys ever then. Yeah, they win a Super Bowl in them. They'll never change them. So.
Yep.
But no, I agree with you there. I mean, it's at least we're not the Rams. We don't have the Rams jerseys, so that's the good news here. All right, so. The Charles Harris trade, I know that's been the big topic of conversation over the past week or so. Falcons traded a 2021 7th, which is basically nothing, for Harris, who has done basically nothing in his career, so it's pretty much a fair trade there. Another reclamation project for Dan Quinn. We'll see, if the Falcons can get anything out of him. Obviously, he was a first-round pick, hasn't produced. He's got the athletic measurables that the Falcons like. I mean, the Falcons allegedly liked him coming out. He was on their radar. They just went in a different direction. But Harris has failed to really even find the field, much less produce. So I would say he's still got a ways to go to even make the Falcons roster when the Falcons have guys like Austin Larkin, who's actually produced in the preseason and looks pretty good doing it. So this is, by all means, not an easy path for Charles Harris to just make the roster. He's going to have to show something. But sometimes all it takes is a little change of scenery to make that happen. So do you have any thoughts on Charles Harris coming in? Do you think he has a chance to make the roster? Do you like his prospects? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if you ask Dolphins fans, they don't have good things to say about him. But at the same time, what was it, a 7th round pick?
Yeah, 2021 7th. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too shooken up about it. I mean, up until this year, our last 7th round pick was like Devin Fuller.
Right.
So it's like, if they did anything more than a 7th, to me that tells me they wanted him and he was perhaps about to get cut. So they just threw a 7th or something. Because aside from that, it's like you don't want to get in any sort of like little bidding war over the guy. It's kind of a let's see what you have, because it's not like he's super old or anything. At one time he showed something because he was a first round pick. So
right. Yeah.
See what happens.
And welcome into the building, Eric. We've been eagerly awaiting your arrival. So we were just talking about the Charles Harris trade. Evan has given his thoughts. Did you have any takes on that move for the Falcons?
I mean, it's a low risk, possible high reward situation for him. I mean, there were individuals that I saw on Twitter that, were against it and made a fuss about it, and the team only gave up a 7th round draft pick. So, it's not going to kill them for them to roll the dice in a situation like this. I'm more of a glass half full type guy, and I look at this as a situation for Charles Harris where he had being a first round pick in 2017 with the Dolphins. He didn't really produce much there in Miami, but if you look at their scheme and how they operate things, he was placed in a situation where he had to be a little bit more athletic than what he actually showed. So this may be a situation where he's in a wrong scheme, wrong fit, and now that he's with the Falcons, now I think what they're going to allow him to do is simply just come off the edge like he did at Missouri, not ask much from him. This defensive line, this scheme, while versatile, the roles don't require much. I mean, They just ask you to do a couple of things at all three levels, regardless of what position you play on defense. There's only a couple of things you're tasked to do. So this may be a situation where like, hey, let's see what this guy can do in a different environment with a new team and a chip on the shoulder. I want to point that part out as well. Mm-hmm. If you look over the entire offseason, on both sides of the ball, they really went out and got guys that at one point in time were really heralded as first-round picks. From Gurley to Fowler to Treadwell to Harris, like all these guys had a first-round pick status across the league. And when they got drafted in the first round, none of us, put up any fuss about it because they were taken where they belong, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, this is a situation like they're accumulating talent that we all thought was elite at one point. Mm-hmm. And it may not be a situation that these guys are not talented, things can change. And you and I pointed this out before, Kevin, a player plays a lot different when there's money involved, there's money on the line, and, he may be on his last breath. And that's what it is for guys like Treadwell and Harris. Like they may be on their last. They're on thin ice right now when it comes to an NFL future. This may be their last opportunity. So we may see the best out of them right now.
Yeah, this may be a stupid comparison, but Robert Quinn, wasn't he when he went to Miami kind of thought of as like nothing much, and then he just got like paid a bunch? Like, could this be another situation where it was just a wrong fit on the Dolphins?
It very well could be. Quinn, when he was brought in, he was asked a lot for that team. And he was also another guy that was taken in the first round because of his athleticism. And, you see how he performed last year with Dallas. This is his third team. And, this might have been his last opportunity. And look what happened. He had arguably the best year that we've seen from him in a long time. So, again, you never know how much these guys are going to produce in a situation like this. I mean, Treadwell can quite very possibly be the team's wide receiver 3 by the end of the year. I'm just putting that out there, not saying he will. But in a situation where he has Julio and Ridley on the same field, like he's never been able to work with something like that in Minnesota. Not to mention he hasn't had a quarterback like Matt Ryan. So you never know. With Charles Harris, nothing's going to be asked from him. They're just going to say go out there and get the quarterback.
Right. Yeah. So. And sometimes change of scenery and the fact that you're playing for a new contract can flip the switch for some guys, like you were saying. So we'll hope for the best there. I mean, it's a very low risk move. I mean, they have to pay him a few $1 million, but it's not that much. Yeah. So I think it's like $2 to $3 million that he's owed.
Yeah, they pay him that, but he's looking for a bigger payday, of course, and plus he got his 5th-year option turned down.
Right.
So not only did he get traded for a 7th rounder after being drafted in the first round 3 years ago, but he also had his 5th-year option to turn down. Yeah. So this guy's got a lot to play for.
Yeah. This is probably his last chance. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and again, you never know, man. And if the guy can come in and produce 4 or 5 sacks, are we really going to make a fuss about that for a 7th round pick?
Right. Yeah. It's not worth anybody's time to like complain about it. But the only thing I would be upset about is if they decide now, like, okay, we got Charles Harris, we don't need anybody else. Like, we don't need Everson Griffin. If we were planning to go sign someone like Griffin, now we don't need him. Like, that would be a mistake. But I mean, we'll see.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the outcome.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either because that's the type of thing they do. But they're going to use that money on something. Or they're going to bank it.
They're not done. Yeah. They're not done. They're going to make at least one more addition. It just depends on where.
Yeah. And I personally doubt Everson will even make it to June at this point. But if he makes it to June, there's a chance. But it's probably more likely going to be somebody else. I mean, Marcus Golden is another one that's good. He's a great run defender too. So, there's other options out there if Everson Griffin doesn't make it, but none that are
Golden's
quite.
been on the team right now, let alone Atlanta. He should just been on the team.
That's the thing that makes me wonder, because say he has a deal on the table in Atlanta. Like, Atlanta's contacted him and said, hey, if you don't sign, we'll give you $8 million, to come here, and we'll give you a 2-year deal, 2 years, $18 million, come to Atlanta. You just have to wait until June, and no one else has been able to beat that offer at this point. That might be a reason he's unsigned, because there's been teams that are interested in him.
Or maybe it's something undisclosed that we don't know about, which I'm leaning towards that direction. Like, why is a guy like him still on the market at this point? Like, there's something out there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be any number of things. It could be him holding out for more money, like, because there will be injuries in camp and stuff like that, and teams will get desperate. That stuff happens too. But he might just be wanting to skip camp. Some veterans want to do that. So remember Freeney. So
could be. I mean, you can kind of sort of negotiate that to an extent if you would like, where you can get signed and say, hey, I don't want to show up to camp. I mean, certain players can have that leeway. It's always puzzled me how athletes, when they're in the offseason and they're looking for contracts, they're looking to sign with a different team, and they get to a point like now or in the summer and they still believe like, hey, I can still get that big money contract. Like, there's no possible way you can get a decent contract at this point. Like, at this point, you're probably going to sign for 1, maybe 2 years at the most for pennies. Yeah. I mean,
it's not great. It's not great if you wait this long.
It's not. And I believe Jadeveon Clowney is still thinking the same thing. Like, I'm still going to get $20 million a year. No, dude, there's no way.
Yeah.
No one's going to pay you that much now.
But he had so few sacks. It's like, as much as sacks are overrated, because he had plenty of pressures, it's like, you can't have as few sacks as he had and get $20 million a year. You just can't. Like, teams won't.
Yeah, right.
Teams won't.
Right, but I'm like, at this point, does he really think?
I hope not.
Has his agent not sat him down and said, hey, man, we need to come down off that number? Like, come on, dude. It's May. It's mid-May. Get ready to go into June, and you're still holding on to that $20 million price tag? Like, come on. Yeah. There's no way you're going to get that.
Right. Nope, I agree with you. There. So, I mean, we'll see what happens there. I mean, if he's willing to sign a cheap deal, let's go, Atlanta. Come on. But I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's start breaking down the offense. We're going to start talking about the position groups on the offense, all the interesting battles there. The offense is actually fairly settled compared to the defense, but there are some positions that we could talk about for sure. So we'll start going down the list here, starting at the top with the most important position that the Falcons actually have pretty much locked up with Matt Ryan. And I say pretty much only as a joke, because Matt Ryan's definitely the starter. But Matt Ryan's obviously going to be the starter. I don't think any of us have a problem with that. Maybe some of you in the chat do. Keep that to yourself. But, yeah, I mean, the bigger question is, like, quarterback 2, because Matt Schaub somehow came in last year and played like an amazing game against Seattle. I mean, it was like a crazy productive game. But he's 39 years old. He's making a fair amount of money. I mean, several $1 million that they could save if they cut him. And they have an intriguing couple of guys in Kurt Benkert and Danny Etling. So I guess my question to you guys would be, who do you think is going to come out of this as the backup? And do you think the quarterbacks keep a third, or do you think it's going to be a practice squad situation for the third guy? So, whoever wants to go first is fine.
It pains me to say, but
don't you do it?
Now pretty much has it locked up for the number 2, and I honestly, I would want to see them move on at this point. I think they should have done this like 2-3 years ago, to be quite honest with you. And it's about time to do so, but they're not, of course. I think Benkert is probably the guy, and I think Etling is probably headed for a practice squad situation. I like Benkert. I like him a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Playing in the ACC, I got to see him, a decent amount. And the guy had when he's down, when he's having a bad day, you notice it. But when he's when he's on top of his game, he's able to play some winning football as a starting quarterback in this league. And if a guy, someone like Mason Rudolph can, earn some starts, granted because of injury, then I think Benkert can as well. So I think Benkert has. I honestly wouldn't be surprised that if they actually had like a legitimate training camp this year, that Benkert beats out Schaub.
Yeah, I think he would have last year if he didn't get hurt. I think he would have won. But then
Agreed.
Schaub getting that great game on film this last year at like age 38, that may have helped him a lot. But
Yeah, that was worst possible scenario.
yeah, for Benkert. But
If you want him gone, he didn't need a game like that.
yeah, that was an incredible game. I mean, just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I think it probably should be Benkert, but yeah, it's kind of resigned to Schaub.
Yeah.
But do you think they'll keep 3 on the roster and then put Etling on the practice squad, or do you, assuming that it's Schaub and Benkert are the top 2, or do you think it's going to be 2 on the roster and then one of the guys on the practice squad?
I think a lot of that may depend on how many receivers and running backs they keep. Because bringing in a guy like Gurley, it's a crowded running back room now because you have Gurley, you have Ito, you have Hill, you have Allison, not to mention you have 2 fullbacks. So it depends on what they do there. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a running back is cut loose this offseason, to be honest with you. And as well as receiver, it's Julio, Ridley, Gage, Treadwell, as well as Zacchaeus and maybe Kristen Blake. I mean, it's a crowded room. I think it depends on more what they do at the skill positions. If they, trim back there, I think it's a possibility they'll keep 3 quarterbacks. But I don't see it right now because I think, if when push comes to shove, I think they're going to keep those skill positions kind of loaded a little bit and then just roll with 2 quarterbacks like they did last year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Evan, you got any takes on that backup quarterback battle and how that might shake out?
I have no idea how it's going to shake out, but I'm Team Benkert. I do have a soft spot for Schaub just because I think it's remarkable that he's entering like his 17th or 18th season. Like
age 39.
He feels like he's been with us forever. But yeah, I mean, long term, I want Benkert to be the backup. I think him and Zacchaeus actually went to Virginia together. And I love those like kind of stories, and Zacchaeus being like undrafted and stuff. And I don't know. I have nothing to back it up, but I'm pro Benkert.
Yeah, we've gotten some like we've seen 2 great preseason games out of him, which honestly doesn't really tell us much, but like compared to the other quarterbacks we've had on the Falcons playing the preseason, like that's pretty great compared to the other guys we've seen.
How does it work though? Because they re-signed Schaub earlier this offseason. What was his cap hit?
It's like 2.2 million. But only 200 and something thousand of it is guaranteed. The other 2 million was like a signing bonus.
So they're not exactly tied to him.
Yeah. Yeah, so if they cut him, they could save 2 million of the 2.2 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they're actually banking on Ryan getting hurt again this season as well.
Yeah.
So that can definitely be a possibility. So
yeah, so I mean that's a way they could save some cash. So I think honestly, if Benkert plays really well in the preseason again, they'll really strongly.
Well,
consider
remember last year wasn't he hurt in the Hall of Fame game?
Yeah, he was.
So it's
he played great.
He didn't even really have a chance last year. I think it was like his toe or his foot.
Yeah, he got like a seasoning turf toe, I think it was.
Yeah. So I mean, he didn't even get to compete last year. Hopefully, he's able to this offseason. No idea how it's really going, but
yeah. So I mean, we'll see. Obviously, this is his chance really to make his mark. And if he plays really well, they'll probably. I would say they probably will lean towards keeping Benkert just because, like, if he plays really well in the preseason this year and doesn't get hurt, he's going to be on the radar of a lot of teams, and I don't think they really want to keep 3 on the roster, honestly. So I think there's a good chance that Benkert could supplant Schaub if he plays really well and Schaub is like showing signs of slowing down. That's one way. And then I think they really do honestly like Danny Etling as the practice squad quarterback because, he's athletic. He's got that big arm. He can kind of replicate a little bit what the normal.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
What?
Don't do it.
Don't do what? He could play certain guys in practice to help the team prepare.
I thought you were going to say that they could possibly put a package together. Like,
oh no! I was gonna say he can replicate.
Please.
He can replicate like Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson in practice, so they can practice against a mobile quarterback. I think that's why they like him as the practice squad quarterback.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I wasn't gonna mutter the th word or anything like
God.
that. Yeah. Sorry, we're not the Saints that are like trying to trade for a backup to Taysom Hill or whatever.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, but I think they like Etling as that practice squad guy because of his ability to play multiple types of quarterback, and with the new roster rules. Okay, I need this to be clear for everyone. The rosters have not increased to 55. Everyone is saying that, even people that I know and respect. The rosters have not increased to 55. They will not increase to 55 permanently. It's only 55 for game days, like over the weekend. It increases to 55. So I think it's like Thursday or Friday, you can elevate 2 practice squad players to the roster to make it 55. And then on Monday, they go back to the practice squad. So it's not a permanent increase. It's only a few days increase. But what that can let you do...
That was incorporated in the new CBA, right?
Correct. But what that can allow you to do is make your third quarterback like a weekend active on your roster. So they could elevate Etling as the third quarterback to the 55-man roster for the weekend, so they could have that third emergency quarterback, available for game day, but they don't have to carry him on the roster all week. It could just be a weekend thing. But it's just...
That's interesting.
Yeah. And didn't the practice squad, it's eventually going to grow?
Yes.
So 14?
So it's 12 now, and I believe it's going to grow.
It's 12 now?
Yeah.
Wasn't it 10?
It was 10.
It's been 12.
It was 10. Okay. Now it's 12. It'll be, I believe, 14 next year, and it might even go up more than that. But yeah, it's going to...
Dude, all these are signs that are pointing towards them probably keeping 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, it could be. It could be for sure.
Yeah. That definitely could be, because I think at this point it may be best to keep the 4, see how it plays out in training camp. If they have to let Schaub go and promote Benkert, they'll do so. But if not, if Schaub still remains steady, they can still keep 3 quarterbacks and keep Etling as the practice squad guy. So I think they may end up, basically what I'm saying is I think they'll roll into training camp with all 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And just throwing a football out there and say, good luck, guys. See what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they did last year. They had 4 going into the preseason, I think. Or actually, last year was an exception. They only had 3. And then once Benkert got hurt, they signed Etling. But prior to 2019, they'd usually gotten 4. They've had just random undrafted guys to come in and compete with Schaub and Benkert for the past several years. But I think they like to have 4 generally in the preseason because Matt Ryan's not going to play in most of the games, so they want to have guys that can rotate in and out. But yeah, that is one of the more interesting, probably inconsequential battles, at least in terms of like 2020. But long term, it could have implications because Benkert's pretty young. He has a chance to maybe be the heir apparent. If he continues to play well as the backup, he could stick around for a while, and he's got the tools to be a high level quarterback. He just, the mental stuff, like Eric was saying, he's kind of, his college tape is very hit or miss. So if he can learn to kind of smooth that out, he could be a starting quarterback. So don't forget Matt Sims, the simulator. Yeah, so the simulator was malfunctioning and Matt Sims is no longer with us. But, I mean, don't count him out because he's always finding a way back to this roster, folks. All right, let's move on to maybe a more exciting, maybe roster discussion, which would be running back, fullback. So the guys the Falcons have there right now, I'll list them off for you guys so you know. Todd Gurley, the presumptive starter, obviously not going anywhere. Then we've got a whole mess of Brian Hill, Smith, Quadri Olison, undrafted player Craig Reynolds and recent undrafted signing Mikey Daniel, who has officially been listed as a running back now, not a fullback, even though he was initially called a fullback. I guess there was an interview this week where they talked about him competing at running back too. And then they have Keith Smith as the fullback, and Smith is going to be the fullback. They just gave him an extension, so he's not going. Mikey Daniel's not here to compete with Keith Smith. He's here to compete for a running back spot. But there's a whole mess of running backs here. We don't really know for sure what we have in Gurley. There's some hope that he can maybe return to form. The other guys is kind of a question mark. Ito's health and all that. Brian Hill, can he actually play well when given the chance? So Evan, I'll give you the first crack at this. What are your thoughts on this running back depth chart, and who are the 4 or so guys that you think are going to end up sticking around when the smoke clears?
Yeah, I mean, before we signed Gurley, it seemed like that was an obvious need. What we expected going in the draft, I think some people were mentioning like a second round or third round running back being, a target. Now it's like all of a sudden it seems pretty crowded. And considering that we, under Dirk Cutter, there's always struggling to run the ball. Probably not going to have a bunch of guys on the roster. Obviously Gurley's the number one. Brian Hill signed his tender recently. It's like $2 million something. Yeah. But so that pretty much means he's safe, right?
I mean, they could cut him and get the money back, but
all of it back?
I believe so, until he starts playing games. But yeah, I mean, the fact that they gave him the tender makes you kind of think that they value him that way. So it's a little bit
even
weird,
though
but...
like last year, he's our last 100-yard rusher, and that was before Cutter. And last year when he was given the opportunities to start, it was like a train wreck. Like it was bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of that's him or that's Cutter. But
someone in the chat told me not to slander Dirk Cutter, and I'm sorry, I can't not slander.
What?
Yeah.
I can't not slander Dirk Cutter.
You must be new here.
Yeah.
Allison, he led the team in touchdowns somehow. It seemed like all his carries were at the goal line. So
yes, he had like 20-something carries and 4 touchdowns.
I don't know anything about Craig Reynolds, so I'm gonna go ahead and say he's out. Ito, last year
Ito might be the best guy, but is he healthy? Like that's what I don't know. Like,
yeah, there was talk. I remember where people were like, "Oh, he's better than Devontae Freeman," and it's like,
okay, calm down.
Now it's like, is everything okay health wise? I don't know, but. If you follow me on Twitter, you're probably annoyed at me at this point, but I've sold my soul on Mikey Daniel. I started, I didn't know who he was. And
you interviewed him, right?
Yeah, I actually, that's the thing is he was telling me this stuff, and then it came out this week about him playing running back and fullback. I'm like, my article said it, a week ago. Yeah. But no, he's a cool dude, first off. Real humble kid, South Dakota State, he says all the right stuff. Great size, and he looks like he is a fullback, which you're used to. But he's also like if you know C.J. Ham is type fullback, where he can do all this other athletic stuff. Great blocker. I don't know how he's going to get on the roster, but he's like, my hot take. I think he's going to somehow make the roster. And then it's like Dan Quinn all of a sudden coming out and talking about I don't know how it was asked in the press conference, because I don't think we can watch that. I think it was like a private thing. But to go out and talk about a undrafted free agent, I think that's something to at least pay attention to. And if you watch his tape, I know you should take tape with a grain of salt and highlights or one thing, but I watched a 12-minute thing he had of all his film, and the dude's crazy. He can he's hurdling over guys left and right. Obviously you're not going to be able to do that on the NFL level on a consistent basis, but at 235 pounds, the Falcons website has him listed 6'2" to 235. He's a huge dude. He's very athletic. I don't know, read after you listen to this, read my my thing with him. Really cool dude. But yeah, I don't know, to be honest. This running backfield is all of a sudden insanely crowded. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how he plays in the preseason because it seems like Quinn really likes him, and they didn't add any other undrafted guys. Like usually, you'll see them add a whole slew of undrafted guys, but
yeah, I mean, is it normal for a head coach to start talk like? I didn't see him talking about any of the other undrafteds. That's why I was like,
yeah,
that's kind of interesting, you know, because I just talked to him a week before. That's why I knew so much about him because we signed 20 undrafted free agents.
They boost a few guys every year.
Yeah.
They actually, you know, put a lot of pride into the undrafted class because, you know, over the past few years, that's how pretty much they built the back end of their roster. So
right.
That doesn't necessarily surprise me much about them talking, talking positive about him. But, you know, I'm curious to see how he plays. He's for sure going to get a shot. He's going to get some carries. He's going to get a shot. Just to see how he fits. I just think his skill set and Ollison's skill set kind of, you know, it cancels each other out a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. I will say this for sure: he's going to have to show some type of special team value.
Yeah, which I think he probably can.
Yeah, he's I mean, I saw he's a crazy good blocker, played special teams and stuff, but I think. Not just for him, but a lot of the undrafted free agents, this offseason's insanely different from what, you know, past players have been used to. Yeah. So hopefully that doesn't limit them on being, because right now would probably be what, rookie mini camp or whatever, or where
they'd be getting somewhat close to rookie mini camp.
Yeah, I think that's like the end of May.
So right now they're all doing virtual. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but it's virtual. You know,
I would hate to be an undrafted guy.
Oh yeah, it's really stacked against him this year.
Sit around and
anything,
webcam.
Yeah, doing Zoom meetings all day. I would hate to be an undrafted guy right
now. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough out there. Yeah, I mean, so I guess to me, it's like the top four seems to be, you know, some combination. Todd Gurley number one, obviously, but then it's some combination of Ito Smith, Brian Hill, Quadri Olison, and then it's like, you know, how does if Mikey Daniel wins a roster spot, he's probably displacing one of those guys because they're already keeping, you know, if you factor in Keith Smith, that would be 5 without Mikey Daniel. So, you know, let's give Mikey Daniel the benefit of the doubt and say that he somehow beats out somebody and makes the roster. Who is the guy that's getting beat out in that scenario, do you think? And I'll let you take the first crack at it, Eric. Of those 4 guys that I listed, Gurley, Ito Smith, Brian Hill, Quadri Olison, which one do you think is like the most vulnerable at this point?
I'll say Olison.
Yeah.
Because I think it was it was a definite, you know, positive sign, so to speak, for them to give Keith Smith the extension this offseason, you know, for a fullback. He's just a traditional fullback, and they gave him what, a 3-year deal or something like that.
Yeah, it was like $3 million a year or something for a fullback. So that's a lot.
So I think that's pretty safe for him. I mean, he played pretty solid last year, but you know, when it comes to, you know, him and Olison, like I said, I think their skill sets cancel each other out. You know, I'm somewhat surprised that they didn't go for a running back in the draft or even early in the offseason, but I think that's more of a sign as far as what they feel Gurley's going to provide, along with their or lack of health concerns for Ito Smith. Because they easily could have moved on from Ito Smith if they wanted to and not you know, lose any sleep or lose any considerable money in dead cap. But it is a crowded running back room. I really like what Brian Hill brings to the table. I really do. And he showed me something last year. He's definitely gotten faster over the past couple of years. Looks like he lost a little bit of weight as well, compared to his Wyoming tape. But I think he's due for a breakout year. I'm not talking 1,000-yard season, but I'm talking about, you know, maybe a guy that can give him, you know, 6, 7, maybe 800 all-purpose, and a few touchdowns as well. So we'll see what they can do. But it is crowded, and I think right now the only battle in the running back room right now will probably be between Olison and Mikey Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like Olsen is the most recent draft pick of all these guys too, and
Right.
it was a fifth rounder, so it's not like it's a huge investment that they'd be losing. But you'd think that they'd be pretty against letting that guy go. And he was productive as a goal line back, but his yards per carry was very pedestrian. But again, that might be a product of when he was used. But
No offense, but well, see, here's the thing. You look at Todd Gurley's numbers over the past couple of years. Go back to how many touchdowns did he have last year?
Todd Gurley? I think 14 total. I'm not
14
sure how many
total.
rushing.
I think 10. I think I remember looking this stat up. I think 10 of those 14 touchdowns came within inside the red zone.
yeah, he was great in the red zone. Yeah.
Basically, they're not going to need a goal line specialist.
Right.
I had Gurley on my fantasy team the last 2 years, so I've seen more Gurley than I can admit. He, in fantasy, he should have had a lot more touchdowns. Especially last year, the Rams kind of vultured him with Malcolm Brown. They would run Gurley, and then they would just bring Brown in and let him score. But he actually looked in the red zone how the Rams, when they did actually use him, kind of like how the Falcons used Allison, where it was it seemed like they were like, well, and it's something we've been wanting them to do for years, but it's like they'd get in the red zone and not be sure what to do. It's like run the damn ball up the middle.
Right.
And Allison actually gave them that kind of
thing.
So it's like they kind of looked similar in terms of how they were used, in my opinion, right there. But I don't know.
I think 10 of those 14 came inside the red zone. I think even half of those 10 came inside the 5. So basically, there's really not much of a need right now for a goal line specialist like Allison, because you got a guy in Gurley that's probably going to get the bulk of the carries that close to the goal line anyway.
Right.
So that's not good for Allison's part.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's tough to predict because, I agree with you on that thing that, if Mikey Daniel ends up beating someone, it's probably Olsen because they fill the same role. But then at the same time, it's Ito Smith's health could be one thing that gets Ito Smith off the team or put on IR or whatever. So that could lead to an opening for Mikey Daniel. And then, Brian Hill is the one making all the money. So if Mikey Daniel's great and Brian Hill doesn't impress, then they might say, oh, well, Brian Hill's the most expensive, so we can save the money by moving on. So it's I guess I can hear an argument for each of these guys. I mean, I agree with you that Brian Hill's probably the most talented of that group, but
yeah, he's not going anywhere unless he has just a catastrophic offseason. He's not going anywhere. He's pretty much, you can lock him in as the RB2 right now. I would like to see what Ito brings, if he brings anything, but we'll see. But I don't think his health is that great of a concern for the team right now.
Yeah. I mean, their other moves would kind of bear that out, like you said.
Yeah.
So they didn't act like he wasn't going to be able to play this season. So.
Right.
But then again, I mean, Mikey Daniel could easily be a practice squad guy this year, and then next year when, we don't have Gurley, we don't have Brian Hill, and we've got these other guys that they're like, okay, Mikey Daniel, now you're going to be on the roster. And with the expanded practice squads, I mean, it's easier than ever to fit a running back on your practice squad. I mean, you can easily keep one with 12 spots. So I'm interested to see how that plays out for sure. That's one of the more interesting groups because, like you said, I mean, they are crowded. They've got a lot of guys that can potentially make the roster there. All right. Next up, let's do a little tight end talk. So tight end, also pretty unsettled. Obviously, the Falcons traded for Hayden Hurst to be the top guy. So he's safe. He's going to do his best to replicate Austin Hooper's role. And I think he'll do a pretty good job. So in terms of other options, we've got Jaden Graham, who was impressive in limited action last year. Actually had, I think, the highest yards per catch of any Falcons receiver. I don't think he had a ton of catches, but he had an absurdly high yards per catch. And improving as a blocker, still pretty unreliable there, but, decent. They have the XFL standout Kari Lee, who was the best blocking tight end in the XFL, according to most metrics. He's got some NFL experience as well. They've got former undrafted free agent Carson Meyer, who has been with the team for a year now. He got signed, I think, midseason to the practice squad and has kind of stuck around. Then they've got 2 undrafted free agents from this year. The big one being Jared Pinkney, who probably should have been drafted. had a down year in 2019 because Vanderbilt's quarterback was an abomination. But again, he actually is a pretty good receiver, pretty good blocker. He's got some flexibility. He basically screams tight end 2 to me, a guy that can be a reliable fixture on your roster. Not like overly dynamic or anything like that, but he's big and strong and he can run some people over. So he's got a chance. And then Caleb Rep is someone who I haven't really looked into. He's got some size and some athleticism from Utah State. So obviously it's going to be Hayden Hurst. But after Hayden Hurst, there's a lot of question marks. Like, are the Falcons going to keep 3 tight ends or 4 tight ends? Because we know Cutter freaking loves his tight ends. So 4 tight ends wouldn't be shocking.
Does he?
He does. He's obsessed with tight ends. Look at Hooper's usage. Yeah.
He's obsessed with having them.
Yeah.
As far as using them, that's a different question. He's
good at using the 1, and in Tampa Bay he was good at using 2, but
Was he?
Well, I mean, he used to a lot. What is good is, very subjective, but you remember like freaking who was that? Who was the number 2 tight end in Tampa Bay? Bray. Yeah, Bray was always getting hella touchdowns. He was a great streaming tight end for fantasies. But yeah, so I mean, we've got a lot of names here. Hayden Hurst is really the only safe one. I mean, I would say Jaden Graham's probably safe as well, just because I think the team really likes him. But from all those other guys, who do you think is the one that's going to end up making the roster? And do you think it's going to be 3 or 4? So what are your guys' thoughts on that group?
3. Pinkney's the 3rd.
Okay.
I think Pinkney wins it out. He should have came out. Well, I don't know if he was eligible to come out after 2019, but he would have been drafted if he came out after 2018 season. He reminds me of Algie Crumpler. He's not, the most elusive. He's not the most athletic. As a matter of fact, what was his 40 time? Like a 4.9 or something? Or
yeah, I mean, it wasn't. His combine workout hurt him. Yeah, it
was dreadfully slow. But if you throw on a film, he is the type of tight end that defenders are kind of weary to go tackle because he's large. I mean, he's what 6'3",
6'5", yeah.
6'4", 6'5",
yeah.
Maybe what 260, 270, maybe. Like, he's a big guy. And he has decent hands. But like I said, I think his best attribute is the fact that he can produce after the catch in a way where he's not going to run away from defenders, but defenders are not going to be able to bring him down to the ground as easily. He's that type of guy where he can drag a few ball carriers for a first down or so and get some extra yards that way. So I think that's where he comes into play. So if he can improve on that speed, and his blocking was below average, and I'm being nice. If he can improve in those 2 aspects, I think he can definitely be tight end 3 and win a spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and to me it's like, it just depends on what they're looking for, because if they really like Jaden Graham's receiving, then he's going to have a harder time, because I don't think he's going to be able to beat out Kari Lee as a blocker. So if they're looking for a blocking tight end, Kari Lee's probably the best blocker of all the tight ends they have. And it's not like he's useless as a receiver. I mean, he's like who was that one guy they had a couple of years ago that was just good for like 3 to 4 catches a season, but he'd always catch it. It wasn't last year. It was like the year before.
Oh, Jacob Tammy?
Not Tammy. Tammy actually.
Pascal?
It wasn't Toilo. It wasn't Pascal. It was some other guy that they had, but some white guy. Some white tight end, big, good blocker, but. I mean, Bear Pasco is a good example of someone like that too. Tammy was actually a good receiver, so I don't want to slander Tammy.
Luke
with that.
Stalker.
It wasn't Luke Stalker, but it was
Tammy
basically.
Tammy shouldn't have gotten hurt. They would have put up better numbers if Tammy.
I'm curious who it was.
Yeah, maybe it was. It was similar to Bear Pasco though. That guy that would just kind of leak out and catch a pass every now and then, but was otherwise kind of, But he could catch it. He wasn't going to drop it, but he wasn't going to get you any yards after the catch either. But so I like Kari Lee's potential, but he's not going to get you much as a receiver. So it really just depends on if they want to keep 3 or 4. Because I think if they keep 4, Jared Pinkney's making the roster, and so is Kari Lee. But if they're keeping 3, I think it's a much bigger question whether it's going to be Lee or Pinkney, and that's going to come down to whether they want a blocker or a receiver.
And he had I'm looking at his numbers here. He has such an odd collegiate career because he played 4 years. He played 4 years at Vandy, right? So his freshman, sophomore, and senior year, he had 22, 22, and 20 catches. All of them for just under 300 total yards. And then he had that one junior year where he put up 50 catches for 774 yards and 7 touchdowns. Like it's such a weird. So what do you? I guess at this point is which one is he? Is he more of the guy that's 20 catches and 2 touchdowns? Just that fill-in guy. Maybe get you a player or two, or is he really capable of? I mean, because putting up 50 catches and 7 touchdowns in an offense for Vanderbilt against SEC opponents, that's not that bad.
Right.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
So which one is he? That's
right.
That's what a lot of people are wondering.
Yeah.
He has the size, 6'4", 260. I think he had like 10-inch hands. So he has bear claws for hands. Decent arms, arm length. He's just a big lumbering tight end that's tough to bring down.
Yeah.
But that's about it. He's 4.96 in the 40 to be exact.
Yeah, it's not fast. Not fast.
Man, I hope he had a bad takeoff.
He might have. I mean, who knows?
Yes.
I think he did say that in one of his combine interviews that I
hope so.
He said he was off because of the late workouts and all that.
I hope so because Derek Brown ran a 5.06 or something like that, and Derek Brown outweighs him by 70-something pounds.
I think he said he would have run like a 4.75 or something if he had run at his pro day, but they got the pro day canceled. So, and 4.75 isn't fast, but it's not bad for a tight end.
Of course, you'd have ran a 4.7 at your pro day.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah. No, he probably would have run like a 4.6 at his pro day, and then everyone would have put in the pro day tax, and it would have been about 4.75. So, but no, it was Logan Paulson, by the way, was the tight end I was thinking of.
Oh, Paulson?
Yeah. Exactly. But that dude, he would catch like 3 to 4 passes a season, but he'd always catch it. He'd just kind of leak out, get a few catches here and there.
Yeah, but no, we pointed that out last year, man. Ryan targeted him way too many times.
I know, it was funny. Shanahan loved that little leak out play though.
He's getting multiple targets a drive. What the hell is this? Wait a minute.
Just like sneak out the back of the form. They love that play. That play works great in Madden too, but like, come on, like you got to calm down with that. Yeah. All right. So tight end, lots of takes there, lots of unknowns. That's probably the least settled position on the offense, I would say, is tight end. Obviously we have Hayden Hurst, but behind Hayden Hurst, it's pretty up in the air.
It's a lot of inexperience.
Yeah.
When you think of like 11 total, I think it's 11 total catches behind Hurst.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And most of it, I think, is like from Lee because he had an NFL career before the XFL.
It was short. Long. Yeah. And he was mostly a blocker then too. So, that'll be interesting to see what they do there, keeping 3 or 4. It could be a situation where it's like the 4th guy is one of those players that's getting, elevated to the roster, on the weekends or as needed, that sort of thing. So we'll see. But Kari Lee is probably not eligible for the practice squad because he allegedly has 4 years of experience, so that probably wouldn't work. But Pinkney could be eligible, so we'll see. But he probably has a good chance of making another roster though if he gets cut. So we'll see there. All right. Next up would be wide receiver, where the Falcons obviously have a ton of names. They always bring in a bunch of free agent wide receivers to compete. But we'll start with the top guys. To me, I think the top 5 are all pretty set. I can't really see the Falcons parting ways with any of these guys unless they really suck. The first 3 are 100% safe. We got Julio Jones, obviously, Calvin Ridley, obviously, and then Russell Gage, the team loves, and he's probably the de facto wide receiver 3. So those guys are all safe. Then we've got Laquan Treadwell and Olamide Zaccheaus, who I think are probably 75% safe. If Treadwell doesn't face plant, he's probably got the leg up on a roster spot just because of his pedigree and the fact that he's got all that size. He's got the size. The Falcons really don't have anybody else with size. That's the one thing they're kind of missing. So Treadwell fills that niche. And I think he's probably better than Christian Blake, if we're being honest. So, that's not really saying a lot, but I think he's most likely to make it there. And then Zaccheaus, I think they don't want to get rid of. I think they really like his potential. I mean, he's fast. He's not tiny. He's got a lot working for him. I think he's good. But that 6th spot, we know they like to keep 6. They even kept 7 to start last year, which was weird. That 6th spot is up for grabs, and that's probably going to be the returner. And here are all the guys competing for that. I'll just read them off real quick. We've got Devin Gray, who's been around the team for a couple of years now as an undrafted guy. Jawan Green, an undrafted free agent from Albany. Christian Blake, we know he's been around the team a couple of years as well. Jalen McCleskey from Tulane. I know he's got some fans in the chat here. Brandon Powell, who's been around the NFL a little bit past couple of years. And Chris Rowland from Tennessee State, who is my personal favorite. I think he is a great returner, someone who has a chance to make this team in that capacity. But I don't know, to you guys, I guess I'll let you take the first crack here. Evan, at these guys, is there any names that stand out to you? Any of those guys you think have the leg up for that 6th spot / returner job in terms of the receiver group?
Well, I think I'd agree with you and say Rowland. Didn't they give him like one of the higher undrafted free agent?
Yeah. The most of any undrafted free agent they gave out, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it was like 75.
I mean, they got to have somebody. Kenyon Barner did a great job last year, and, but he's off, I think he's still unsigned.
He's a free agent,
now.
yeah.
But they didn't use him as a running back, so there was really no reason to keep him where Rowland could add something to the offense, I don't see – I mean, I don't know enough about, like, Jawan Green. Devin Gray, we kind of know by now what we're getting. But Jalen McCleskey, don't know much about him. I'll take everybody's word. But, yeah, I don't see how Rowland isn't the favorite just because of the special teams, what he could bring to the return. But, and Brandon Powell, he was like I think he was on the Lions practice squad or something. We signed him off. I don't know much about him either, but I do notice a trend that we're talking a lot about undrafted free agents making the roster. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but they're affordable.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, I think Rowland definitely has the edge on any returner competition just because he's the most accomplished returner they have, and that's not really saying a lot compared to who they have on the roster, but he was a good returner in college. He's very savvy with the ball in his hands. He's explosive. He's got some good hands too. Eric, you got any takes on the bottom of this wide receiver depth chart?
It's a battle royal, basically. It really isn't set. After I guess you can say after Treadwell, it's up in the air at that point. He's going to have to show some special teams value as well. But, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Treadwell has a decent year. Honestly. I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt in Minnesota. But, with everything with the undrafted guys, I think Rowland is probably the favorite given, what he can provide on tape along with, what the team thought of him enough to give him, that type of, signing bonus and things of that nature. But this one thing I can say over the past few years, they've always had plenty of intrigue with undrafted wide receivers.
Yeah.
And this year is no short of that. Jawan Green, you mentioned him from Albany. He led FCS last year with 17 touchdown catches. So he can definitely produce, and I think he had like a school record of catches as well. McCleskey from Tulane had a little bit of a down year, but McCleskey was a transfer from Oklahoma State, and he played alongside Mason Rudolph for a couple of years, and he was pretty solid, pretty good weapon in that scheme as well, with Oklahoma State with all their weapons that they have every year. So there's plenty of intrigue going around, and I think this is, arguably going to be, the most intriguing position battle on this roster this offseason. If I had to point to a guy that's probably in the lead, I would say Rowland, but I would keep my eyes peeled a little bit on Jawan Green and McCleskey as well.
Yeah, and it probably will come down to their special teams contributions, as it usually does for that final spot, because they don't really have a returner. So whoever that guy is probably has to either be the returner or they have to be willing to give the return job to like Olamide Zaccheaus or Calvin Ridley, who they've already said they don't want him returning kicks, which is probably smart. And I do agree that it's a good idea that they don't add an extra running back just to be the returner. I think that's, if it's not one of the guys you would normally keep to play running back, you shouldn't carry an extra running back just to be a returner.
Right.
Which is why Kenyon Barner's not on the roster. But, yeah, I agree with you there. So I'd say Rowland's the favorite, but there's a lot of guys in there that are going to be competing, and it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. So moving on to the final position, which is the offensive line. A whole mess here. Like, the Falcons have so many offensive linemen, and the problem is we don't know which ones are good. We know, 4 are good, right? We know Jake Matthews at left tackle is good. We know Alex Mack at center is good. We're pretty sure Chris Lindstrom at right guard is good, and I think we're, very cautiously optimistic that Caleb McGarry is maybe good at right tackle. Left guard is totally a mystery. And, there's a bunch of guys competing there. Swing tackle's a mystery. Probably going to be Matt Gono, but we don't really know. There's 4 guys that could be left guard. James Carpenter, Jamon Brown, Justin McCray, John Wetzel. The rookie Matt Hennessey could factor in there. Who knows? And then they added a whole mess of undrafted guys too. I'll just list those names off for clarity's sake. I don't think any of these guys really has a realistic chance of making the roster just because there's so many veterans here. But at tackle, we've got Hunter Atkinson from Georgia State, local kid. Scotty Dill from Memphis. He's 6'7", so that's something, interesting. Okay, here's one that's going to make me...
Good luck.
Yeah. Evan... Okay. I practiced this earlier. Give me a second. I think it's Cesarchek. I think that's how you say it.
Oh, you did practice that. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Cesarchek is, I think, how you say it.
I don't know if that's right or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the CZYK is usually Czech, but the rest of it, that's a total mystery. So that's my best attempt. That's the best you're getting from me. And then at guard...
I think it's Kasarczyk.
Exactly that was pretty close. That was pretty close.
Yeah, no, that was good because you can
guys,
look at it for 10 minutes and come up with a bunch of different possibilities.
I'm usually decent at guessing those, but at guard we've got Justin Gooseberry from Rice, the unkillable Sean Harlow. He cannot be taken off this roster for any reason. So,
poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy. And then I think that's it. I think that's
him
all.
and Wetzel.
What's that?
Yeah,
him and Wetzel.
Wetzel's back.
Perennially getting shuffled on and off the roster. Those poor guys. So let's briefly talk about left guard because that's arguably the big starting position that's not settled. So we've got, let's say, James Carpenter, Jamon Brown, Justin McCray, rookie Matt Hennessey, and I guess Matt Gono if you think they're giving him a legitimate chance to compete there. Eric, what do you think? Who's going to be the winner there? Who would you like to see? You can give me, if it's different, you can say who do you think is going to be the winner and who would you like to be the winner. But if it's the same, that's fine too.
It's the same. I actually think Jamon Brown's going to win it, and I would like to see him win it, just based on, for one, I mean, they can try to get some type of, reach some type of benefits for the free agents signing from last year. I mean, it's still kind of sort of a bad look for them. And he's the younger of the two out of him and Carpenter. I think he's 26?
Yeah, he's not old. Yeah, he's 26.
So he still has some, tread on the tires. So I would like to see him win it. I thought he showed more promise last year than Carpenter. Granted, he had some penalty issues, but the guy didn't, he showed enough separation for a guy like Carpenter who has way more starts in his career. So I would like to see him win it. Gono's going to get a chance, and I'll be honest with you, I do not want to see Hennessey in this competition at all.
Well, Quinn said he's going to be there, so
because he's going to be there. I just prefer him not to be there because I think he's a better fit at center.
Yes, of course.
I think this should just be a redshirt year for him, in my opinion. Best case scenario is that he doesn't even see the field as a center. And I know it sounds weird for a third-round pick, but he's going to have a very, very important role next year, and we need him ready for that.
Yeah.
So even if we can save a season of wear and tear on his body and just prepare him for 2021 to be the starting center, I'm on board with that.
Yeah. And it's like with rookies and all that, like it's, always dicey starting rookies. But yeah, I mean, I think if he legitimately wins the competition and he's the best left guard, then that's fine. But I wouldn't force it. They don't need to force it. They don't need to force him onto the field. Like,
how bad would that look, though?
I mean, it wouldn't be great.
If Hennessey, a more natural center, if Hennessey comes in and wins the left guard spot, how bad would that look for Carpenter and Brown?
Oh, I mean, it would be real bad. Yeah. But I would not be shocked at all if that's what happens, because I think Hennessey's a really hard worker, but I don't think they need to force it. Like, if he legitimately wins, fine. But, don't force it. Like, just because he's a third-round pick, you need to get him on the field. Like, don't... Like, he's probably going to see the field as the primary interior backup one way or the other, just based on the war of attrition. But, we don't need to force him into the starting role. But he hasn't played guard recently, that's for sure.
He hasn't played in a while. So, I mean, it's like I said, just let's not. I'd rather not.
Yeah, and to me, I agree with you. I think in the ideal world, Jamon Brown would win and be a solid left guard. And part of the thing is he hasn't played on the left side since college. He played left tackle in college before he got drafted, but he's basically been on the right side recently, and he looked really good. His good years were on the right side. Now he's back on the left side. People think that you can just switch up your footwork. It's no big deal. You just change the other side of the line. It's completely different. Everything you do is reversed. So completely different. There's a scenario where Brown just took he wasn't well adjusted to the left side. It took him a year to get ready, and now he's more comfortable there. But
and you mentioned that, but remember, he also came to Louisville as a defensive lineman. So he was a very good offensive lineman. I think he only played left guard for maybe a year, if that. And then when he came into the NFL, the Giants moved him to right guard, and he played fairly solid at right guard. But like you said, it's completely different responsibilities as a left guard. And they don't. The thing is, the Falcons don't need much from him. That's the thing. I think that's part of the frustration. They don't need an all-pro guard. I mean, hell, they got to the Super Bowl with Andy Levitre and Chris Chester as a starting guard. They don't need much. They can work with just average play, and it almost seems like you if they can just get that out of Jamon Brown, they'll be fine as an offensive opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I would like to see him, take control of the position, look better this year, and show that free agent deal wasn't a complete disaster. And if he's actually looking good, maybe you can trade away James Carpenter to somebody that's really offensive line needy. Weird things happen in training camp, man. You lose a starter on your offensive line, James Carpenter might start looking, interesting to you. I'm not expecting anything back in compensation. I'm expecting a 2021 7th. We can recoup our 2021 7th maybe, but it's all about getting the money off the books.
Got to get that 7th round pick back, man.
It's about the money. It's not about anything else. Yeah,
we just burned that going at the Charles.
Oh yeah. That's gonna be our next punter, So
I know, right? It's the 7th round, guys.
Yeah, nobody cares about the 7th round, but
plus they're gonna get 4 comp picks next year. It's not that big of a deal, dude.
Yeah, they're gonna get a bunch. All right, Evan, you got any takes here on the left guard battle? Who do you think is gonna come out on top there?
No, I mean I pretty much agree with you guys that Brown hopefully is best case scenario, but. McCray, I'm interested in. I knew a little bit about him, just UCFer, but I don't know much about the other guys to make a fair opinion. But I imagine the team is praying it's Brown, because it's going to be a bad look if Hennessey steps in and is the best option they have.
It's going to be a terrible look.
Yeah, that would not.
But I do like Gooseberry's name. So
yeah, Gooseberry, that's an elite name, and that's like Cushionberry. We had to get one of the berries on the team, but
we got Hennessey and Gooseberry. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's pretty great. It reminds me
anyone is really kind of looking at Gono and seeing that maybe he has a chance here.
I mean, allegedly, but if they want him to be the swing tackle, are they really going to make him the left guard? He's the only veteran swing tackle that is actually possibly good. No offense to John Wetzel and Justin McCray, but
That's the interesting thing is when you look at our tackles, aside from McGarry and Matthews, it's pretty much Gono, And then you have Evan Kasarczyk, who, not to shamelessly plug, but I did speak to him also, and that's on the Falcoholic.com. Hunter Atkinson, another undrafted. Scotty Dill, another undrafted. Like, aside from Gono, that's it on your tackles right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, John Wetzel can play tackle, and so can Justin McCray.
Yeah.
They're both listed
they're
as
going to
guards.
end up cutting him and bringing him back anyway.
Yeah, I don't think Wetzel's holding his breath for the season.
No, I don't think so, yeah. But yeah, no, I agree with you there. Like, I like Kasarczyk, so like he's good. I mean, he played left tackle. He has like 39
He did well
starts.
against because the one thing, I wanted to know who these guys were. Obviously, a lot of them, they're undrafted because they played at smaller schools or whatever. And he played at Buffalo, and I watched the game against Penn State, and he played. He was up against the Panthers' second round defensive end.
Yeah, Yetur Gross-Matos.
Blanking on it. Yeah. And he gave up a half sack, and he did a pretty good job compared to, this dude had like 2.5 sacks the week before, and then later on, I think it was against Ohio State, he had like 3 or 3.5. I'm not saying he's going to win any start, at best, I think he's definitely going to make the practice squad, but somebody keep an eye on.
Yeah, him and Hunter Atkinson are both like promising practice squad developmental tackle types, but
and he's like I think Atkinson's local talent to
Georgia
Atlanta.
State. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I don't know anything about Scotty Dill, but I like his name.
Yeah, he's only played. He only started 1 year, but he's really big, so that's I think that he has going for him. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Swing tackle, it's probably gonna be Matt Gono, but maybe if Matt Gono is starting at left guard, then they might carry an extra tackle just to make that work. I could definitely see them carrying someone like Justin McCray or John Wetzel because they can play guard and tackle, so those guys make sense.
McCray.
Yeah. What?
I forgot about McCray.
Yeah. He played. He was decent at guard. He's not a great tackle.
I don't want to see him at tackle.
No, he's not good at tackle. He's like 6'3". He should not be playing tackle. But at guard, he's fine.
He's 6'3" with short arms.
Yeah, he should never have been playing tackle. Like, if he could play tackle at UCF, but that's
he played tackle. What season?
It was
the 2017 season against Green Bay, and
it was not great.
Yeah, Beasley gave him
the
tough
business.
Time. Yeah. I please don't let him play offensive tackle.
Yeah, but he graded out as a solid starter at guard. So, I mean,
they have
he
options.
can back up tackle as like the deep backup, like the Levine Toilolo level tackle backup.
Yeah, if we're starting him at tackle, we're in trouble. Just you might as well chalk that week up as probably a loss.
Right, but I mean, it's gonna be really hard for anybody other than like James, like, because it's like if they can't trade Carpenter or Brown, neither of those guys can really be cut because you're losing money by cutting them. So, it's like those two guys are making the roster.
Those guys are here, man.
Matt Hennessy's making the roster. Matt Gono's making the roster. That's 8 guys, including the other 4 starters. So, like, I mean, maybe they carry 9, and keep someone like Justin McCray.
So you're saying we'll see that 8 on game day?
Well, that's the 8 that they would have to carry on the 53-man roster.
So those, you have your starting 5, and then you're saying what's Carpenter, Gono, and Hennessey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
as game day. Yeah,
right.
I can see.
But then it's do they carry a 9th guy on the roster too? Maybe.
I'm sure it won't be Wetzel. I'm sure Wetzel is like
he'll be on and off.
I'm sure he's telling his wife like it's any day.
No, he hasn't even moved to Atlanta. Yeah, he just lives in an apartment. He keeps moving in and out.
Yeah. He hasn't even unpacked the
month-to-month lease. Yeah,
yeah.
But no, I mean, like, I think if they do keep 9, like Justin McCray is probably the 9th guy just because they like his versatility and he's actually a decent guard. But like, it's gonna be hard. Like, I don't know because if they keep 9, then they all of a sudden can't keep something else. Like, right now I have them keeping 4 tight ends and 8 offensive linemen. So if they keep 3 tight ends, they could have a 9th offensive lineman.
You have them keeping 4 tight ends?
Yeah, because Dirk Cutter's obsessed with tight ends. We all know it. Search your feelings, okay? You know it to be true. But he didn't keep 4 last year, to be fair. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't really know, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do there with that offensive line, the bottom of that group especially. And then like we were saying, like Kasarchek or Atkinson, I think, have a good shot at the practice squad. They can be the next, developmental tackle they're working on. And no one else
the
is
next
really
Ryan Schrader.
Right, and no one else is really available for guard except for like Gooseberry. Like I'm pretty sure none of these other guys are actually like eligible for the practice squad. So maybe Sean Harlow still is.
Harlow's not holding his breath either.
He's been back so many times.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, he's got a pod stored sitting outside.
Yep. Oh man. All right. Well, you guys have any final offensive roster takes before we wrap it up here?
Matt Ryan is a Hall of Famer.
Just gonna get that in at the end here. Good.
And I'm still calling my shot. Mikey Daniel makes a roster somehow.
Okay. I like it. It's spicy.
That's just the hill I'm dying on.
Yeah. I mean, my hill was Chris Rowland, but that doesn't seem to be a hot take anymore. That's like everyone just expects that.
Everybody's jumping on that bandwagon.
Yeah, that one's too easy. That one's too easy. You'll have to find something else. Some other. Maybe I should stake my flag on the four tight ends thing. Maybe that's where I should stake my flag. We'll see.
Could be.
Kurt Benkert QB2. Maybe that's where I'll stake my flag. But yeah, we appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's the dead of the off season, so I mean we're gonna try to keep the content flowing as much as we can. I mean if they don't have OTAs or mini camp or anything like that, like it's gonna get really dicey in terms of what we can talk about. Like usually I save this roster review for like the desperate times, and like we've already reached the desperate times. Like
we've already broken the
glass. We've already broken the glass on that. So we're gonna have defense next time, and then we'll just do our best to keep the content flowing. Maybe if all these players aren't busy with minicamp, we can get some on the show. That might be fun. We could talk to some of them.
I mean, they're doing everything else virtual.
Right? Yeah, they could come talk to us on the virtual live show too. Yeah. But we appreciate all you guys for tuning in and chatting with us and hanging out. And we'll be back in 2 weeks, which will be, I guess, probably late May, technically. Not quite June. But we'll be back then. We'll talk about some more stuff, talk about the defense and anything else that happens. But before we get out of here, I want to thank my guest this evening, first of all, Evan Birchfield. He's at Evan Birchfield on Twitter. Like I said before, he just did an interview with Mikey Daniel. That's on the Falcoholic.com. Great piece. Definitely check that out if you want to get to know the undrafted running back / fullback a little bit better. Evan, anything else you're working on you want to plug?
I have my first fantasy rankings that comes out Friday. And then obviously the thing when I jumped in late, I was speaking with DW, doing a staff get to know the staff type podcast. Eric was the last one. It was really good. So listen to that. So you can get to know Eric, and then I don't know, tomorrow or maybe the next day you can get to know me. And yeah, I talked to a couple of the undrafted free agents. Jordan Williams from Baylor. Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor. Mm-hmm.
He's a linebacker, and then as I mentioned, Mikey Daniel and Kasarchek, and yeah, so you can kind of get to know them a little bit more if you want, and I think that pretty much sums it up.
Very cool, very cool. Definitely check that stuff out, guys. Also with us tonight, obviously, Eric Robinson at _Eric_Robinson on the Twitters. Eric, anything you're working on you'd like to let the people know about?
Someone bugged me this morning.
You gonna shout him out?
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna give him that credit. Someone bugged me this morning throwing slander at Matt Ryan.
Oh.
And with the slow off season, I decided, you know what? I'm going to put together a pretty lengthy Matt Ryan appreciation post because I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of defending Matt Ryan on Twitter. I'm tired of it. This guy is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's arguably the most underappreciated MVP in NFL history, or at least in the last 20 years. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the mud thrown his way. So I'm going to put together something that should be ready to go this weekend. Just, showing my case, pleading my case why Matt Ryan is vastly underrated and why he deserves more respect than what he's given.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Matt Ryan. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, we need to have Matt Ryan be good. And everyone needs to respect this man because he deserves your respect.
I'm tired of beating people up on Twitter over it, man. It's just...
I think that's the thing that sucks the most is people won't really realize it until he's gone. That's usually how it goes. Like, I think the Dolphins continuously appreciate Dan Marino a lot more now that they've had nothing stable.
How they've had crap ever since.
Yeah.
I just don't see how a guy that has 4 straight 4,000-yard seasons is underrated. I don't get it.
Because Julio Jones.
I don't understand.
Look, Eric. Okay, like if Matt Ryan, didn't have X, Y, and Z, like imagine if Matt Ryan only had, Michael Thomas to throw to. Okay, like the GOAT receiver, Michael Thomas. Because Michael Thomas is so good, clearly that means Drew Brees is overrated. But like if Matt Ryan had somebody as good as Michael Thomas, imagine what he could be.
I mean, yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand how a guy that's 10th overall all time in passing yards is overrated. I don't see how a guy that has more yards than Warren Moon and I don't get it. I really don't.
It's that Falcons bias.
It doesn't really make any sense. There's really nothing to get about it. It's just like we're prognosticators. We have the takes, but like we're not like big time enough to have to like make incendiary takes just to get the clicks. Like we're still small time enough that we can be respectable. And not say outlandish things all the time. You know who I'm talking about, folks. So like I hope that we can always
that other site,
that other site, that many other sites, Skip Bayless for instance. But everybody knows that's his shtick, so like that's fine. Like if you're Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith, who like get paid millions of dollars to have these crazy takes, like that's fine. That's your shtick. You're good at it. That great, good for you. But like if you're just some idiot on Twitter, like you don't need to impress anyone with your crazy takes. Like you can just have normal takes. It's fine. Like, it's not going to get you any clout to say outlandish things. Just speak your mind. Don't chase the clout.
The guy is probably going to pass John Elway in the first game of the season.
Probably. Yeah, probably. So. But John Elway actually wasn't good, Eric, because now since he's been passed by Matt Ryan, clearly he isn't any good.
Neither was Dan Marino.
No,
Dan Marino
they were all bad. Yeah.
He didn't get a Super Bowl. He was atrocious.
Yep. Well, I hope Ryan still gets a Super Bowl, but depending on what happens this year, that might determine a lot. So we're not going to get into that yet. Let's say that for the next pod. So, all right, guys. Well, we appreciate you all for tuning in. If you haven't thrown a like at tonight's show, we would appreciate that. Helps the algorithms and the internet bots, find us, I guess, and other people that might be interested that aren't bots. And then if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button too. That will get you the updates whenever we're going to go live, so you don't have to like manually look around for it. I mean, you probably should know because it's the same time every Wednesday or on Wednesdays. But just in case you're like me and you sometimes forget what day of the week it is, especially during quarantine. Like it's helpful. So we appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your week. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Have a good one, folks. Good night.